She's a former mayor. They're a former evangelical pastor with dissociative identity disorder. These two like to talk about the topics you're not supposed to talk about. They might cause you to perspire just a bit, but they'll definitely make you inspired. Let's talk religion and politics, and what spirituality and emotional well-being look like in a post-evangelical world. This is Paul and Ashley on Evangelicalish.
All right, here we are on another Wednesday when Ashley and I get caught up on our life. Ashley's in, where are you? Sacramento tonight?
Sacramento.
Where in the world is
Sacramento? Yes.
Where in the world is whichever one of us is out of town on a given Wednesday night?
Here we are.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here. I wasn't able to be on last week. And you had an amazing conversation with a person
Doug Padgett
who
was
I
on last
absolutely
week. Yeah.
love and am inspired by, and I was very sorry to miss. So I was like, I don't care where I am on planet Earth, I will be on this next week because I really, really love April Ajoy and talking with her. And so that's coming up, which is super fun.
And I've slightly changed since last time we were together on the podcast. I'm wondering braces.
I'm wondering if anyone noticed. So Paul sent me the little promo video for our show tonight, and I'm like, all of a sudden I can really tell that you have braces. So try saying Christian. Can you say Christian nationalism 3 times fast?
Christian nationalism. See? Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism.
Yeah. So
I'm like, yeah, I am Bobby Brady now with braces. Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's and the amazing thing, it's God's favor on me that I have not had any pain from the braces yet.
That's interesting because
I'm kidding about the God's favor thing, but I sent a text to my orthodontist and said, did you do this wrong? I'm not having any pain at all. And she's like, no, we wound them pretty tight, but sometimes it's rare cases people don't have pain. So just be grateful because there's going to come a day when we tighten them up and it's going to hurt a lot. So yeah.
It's such a lot. It is like a very long and emotional and engaging story to hear, like, what in the heck is this 59-year-old person doing with braces, but it means a lot to you. And maybe someday we'll talk about that here on the show.
We'll go into it. It's a self-parenting thing, and I've done some videos on it. The other thing that's changed about me that you probably can't tell is I have a new lens in my right eye. And next Monday,
literally in your eyeball, not just in your glasses, you're saying in your eyeball.
In my eyeball, I have a new lens. Yes. And I will get a new lens in the left eye next Monday. And they tell me I won't have to wear glasses anymore. So I'm looking forward to that.
You're going to have to change your whole logo. What are you going to do?
I know.
Or maybe your logo could just be like your unibrow.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'll have to let the unibrow grow in. But yes, so I am undergoing many changes. So there we go.
And you should do a parody of Bobby Brady's When It's Time to Change, You Have to Rearrange with your braces and your glasses. Oh, Peter.
That's Peter.
Okay, whatever. You should do that. You should do that.
But that was because his voice was changing. Not
I know,
because
but it's
braces.
Still like, when it's time to change, you got to it. And it's, it's a testimony to, like, you are undergoing transformation. So like, I feel that song applies.
I know nobody that's not Gen X is going to know what the heck that's.
This is my point. Everyone go watch this video. It is everything about that scene from the Brady Bunch. If you don't remember it from childhood or you've never seen it, is inspiring and beautiful and wonderful, right down to the like white matching tracksuits. It's probably one of my favorite things.
The Silver Platters was the name of the band.
The Silver Platters, yes. Yeah. And here we are. I'm super excited. We're gathered here tonight on Evangelical-ish and seeing some of our favorite folks chiming in and saying hi. Glad you guys are all here. Yeah, and we've been hearing a lot of excitement about April coming her original podcasting environment.
We lost you for a second there, but yes, we have a very special guest. Now, whenever we bring on an author onto the show, we have to vet them thoroughly to make sure they are trustworthy. And so we did a deep, and Sandy says, yes, it was the Silver Platters Brady Bunch, note to self. But yes, we have vetted our guest for tonight, and we found her to be somebody we believe we can trust. April Ajoy, very famous reader, author, world traveler, has books on the shelf next to Eric Metaxas. Star Spangled Jesus is the book. April Ajoy is the author. And she may have used to co-host this podcast right here. So welcome, April.
Thank you. I think that's my first time have had to be in the green room on Evangelicalish. So I got to see what that's like. So that was fun. Also, I just want to say, as a millennial, I totally know the Peter "It's Time to Change" song. You've got to rearrange those voice cracks. So I'm loving the Brady Bunch lore that we're.
It transcends. Is my feeling. It transcends generally.
Is that the most famous moment, or is it "Oh my nose"? Yeah, Marcia, the "Oh my nose" moment when she gets hit by the football.
There's also the one that's a meme. That's like "Sure, Jan."
It's
that moment.
Or is it
Marsha?
Or is it
Marsha? It's always Marsha. Marsha.
That lives.
And Trump Trump made it into Russia. So
wait. I didn't know that was a Jan Brady thing. I thought that was just. Was that a Jan Brady?
That's a Jan Brady thing.
Oh my God, it's even more hilarious now. Sorry, I'm just getting read in on that. Oh my goodness.
Well, April, how's your world? How are you and Beecher doing in Kentucky?
We are doing well. It's been, I can never leave the evangelical lore, so it's been a busy season.
That's right. April is also on the New Evangelicals podcast. I forgot to mention in your bio. So.
Oh yeah. I do the Friday. It's like a news recap in evangelicalism, Christian nationalism. And it's very much focused on the election at the moment because who can get away from that? But yeah, we're doing well, hanging out in Lexington with all the horses and the bourbon.
Wonderful. Well, the book is fun to read, and I'm reading it like I do all books. I'm just like, I read the start and the end, and then I kind of pick through it, and it's really fun. Ashley and I both are enjoying it, and I think, and we'll probably ask questions all over it. But I was a little bit surprised. I've heard a lot of your story as we've talked in these hours on the show, but just hearing your story of how you kind of had this light bulb moment of, wait, I was a Christian nationalist. I don't know that I've heard quite that way you told the story in the book. And so was it like, or is it just dramatic writing, but did you have this moment when you're like, wait, that's me. I could have been there on January 6th, like you said in the book.
Yeah. Obviously you write in a way that it's engaging, but there was definitely this light bulb moment because for a while there, I tried to it was easy to separate myself from what evangelicals were doing in their like championing of Donald Trump. And for a while there, I was positioning it as, oh, they're all just crazy. Like they've all just lost the plot. And, it was a way, I think, initially to remove myself from what was happening in evangelicalism. Subconsciously, obviously none of this was conscious. And then when I saw January 6th and I saw the Jesus signs and the, Trump is my president, Jesus is my savior flags, people were doing worship songs before they stormed the Capitol. And then later there was footage of the guy praying inside the chamber. And especially when I saw like initially it was just this light bulb moment when I realized I knew people there and I knew them from church. Like I knew someone that went to my dad's church, like one of the more famous ones, the realtor, like mugshot on the the news, or her pictures everywhere. And then Beecher knew someone from their youth group back in Georgia.
Wow.
And it was just this like epiphany of like, oh my gosh, like I think if you were in a red state and you went to church, you were more likely to be at the insurrection, like in favor of it. And it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, if my life had gone slightly differently, I could have easily just been there. Like these were not crazy people. These were my people. And it was just, I finally just had I need to kind of recognize my own part in it. Cause I think initially I was like, yeah, I used to be a Republican, but it was different back then. We didn't really da-da-da. And it was just a moment of, no, it's kind of always been like this. Donald Trump just shone a light on it.
Yep. I think that often to myself that like I could have gone a very different path. And because I have a kind of similar background, although I did not get to travel the world in an RV with Jesus, America Say Jesus on it. But I'm very, I'm familiar, Southern Midwest, like denominational, Southern Baptist, all that. And honestly, Paul, you're the one who just kind of kept anchoring our family in something different. And I really think I could have very much ended up, I don't think I would have gone to the Capitol to riot on January 6th, but I think I would have had an openness to like, well, I understand where they're coming. I think I could see myself doing that. So I can relate to that point a lot, April. And when you were seeing like the mugshot and the person from youth group, et cetera, at that point, you all had already kind of separated from the evangelical church, or were you still in a like faith congregation at that point in your life?
At that point, so that was the middle of the pandemic still. So we would have still said that we were going to our church, but we stopped because of the pandemic. So we were streaming from home, and then we started streaming it like a little less and less. But at that point, if someone would have asked us, we would have said, oh yeah, we're members at so-and-so church. And like, we just hadn't gone back yet still because of the pandemic. So, but yeah, I would have still at that point, I had just voted for Joe Biden. So it was my first Democrat I had voted for.
Okay.
But I was still, I was still trying to fit in that world in a weird way. Like I still felt like there was room for me there. Yeah, but it wasn't too much later that we were like, nah, we're not members at that church anymore.
We weren't doing evangelicalish yet on January 6th.
We almost, I think we started in February of 21.
Okay. Wow. So all this time, and the world has changed so much since all those days. So what does it mean to you now? So like Ashley alluded to there, your family traveled the world as missionaries. And then in the book, you talk about your father kind of becoming more focused on America and reclaiming it for Jesus. And now to look back and say what Christian nationalism is today was kind of what we became at that moment. What does that feel like for you now? And particularly because, and I love this, by the way, that you dedicated the book to Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think writing the book, I mean, and you probably know this from this show when I was on, but I never talked about my dad a whole lot, just like in little tidbits here and there. And I specifically have not made any TikToks or videos about him, really, because I had not fully dealt with what that relationship is. Because when he had passed away in 2011, we were 100% on the same page, and I loved him. And so he never had the opportunity to change or to change beliefs. And so, I struggled a long time with just like grief and feeling like I was betraying him. And I had my very first panic attack ever writing this book because I was talking about my dad in an honest way. But I tried to be really fair. And I think one thing that it was really kind of like therapy, honestly, like going through all these memories and seeing like, yes, my dad believed really harmful things, as I did. We perpetuated those beliefs. We harmed people along the way because of those beliefs. But also, I know my dad had a good heart because I knew him and I saw him do a lot of really kind things. And it just kind of was a good reminder that most people are more nuanced than we give them credit for. And they're not purely evil and they're not purely good. We're all kind of a mixture of just the human experience. And so I tried twofold. On one hand, people that are still maybe have some nationalism in their faith. I don't know if they'll read my book or not. The hope was maybe some of them will, who are kind of towing the line, but that they could see like there's grace and there can be a soft landing and it's okay to change your mind. But also, like, I understand why you believe what you believe because I used to believe that too. And while it's still problematic and it's still harmful and you should stop, you're not alone in that and it's okay to change. But then on the flip side, people who call out Christian nationalism and hate the fact that, they're trying to take over the country and establish all these laws and overturning Roe v. Wade and taking rights away from everybody, just to have them see like, this is why they're doing that. It's not out of pure evil intentions, because I think if we can understand each other, even if we still disagree, which I still do with Christian nationalism, but having that basic understanding of, I know why you're doing this. It's just, I think, an easier way for us to have a conversation and not immediately just be like, you're pure evil and you just want to take rights away from people.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they are doing that. But like when I was a Christian nationalist, I really believed I was doing the right thing by trying to make America a Christian nation, because I believed in a literal eternal conscious torment hell. I believed if I could keep people from sinning, they'd be more likely to become Christian and then go to heaven. And so like when those are your beliefs, in a weird way, it's almost a noble quest. So it's just, it's getting past that and really trying to get people to open their minds to being like, hey, I understand these are your beliefs, but you are actively harming people. And let's just figure out where we agree. Like I too want to lower abortion rates. And I know that you do too. Like we both want that. We have the same end goal in mind. Let's actually have a conversation on the best ways to do that doesn't harm women in the process.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ashley.
Well, so it really interesting experience for me, like going from this surround sound evangelical culture, even though my parents sent me to public schools, but it was like I was always tethered to, it's kind of like I had this long leash and they let me go out and go to public schools and had a value for, maybe secular things that maybe like the church didn't always. So I had a little bit of this both and happening in my life growing up. But my culture and all of my like North Star, all of that was very firmly like this evangelical, rooted in that.
Yeah.
Then fast forward this wasn't that long ago. This was like literally, I don't know, I think it was when Trump was president. But all of a sudden I'm around a lot of like think tank type people and academics and people working in civic spaces and community development, all of this. And I try to explain to them, like, you guys don't understand. Like, people, you don't understand why people conclude what they do about Christian nationalism and Trump and all of that. And it's literally like you're speaking a different language. There are a lot of people in our country who don't understand what you just said. This is someone's like pure expression of what they have been taught to do. And it is out of faith and allegiance and a lot of really wonderful characteristics, that we would probably affirm absent the sort of, I don't know, application of this stuff in society. But I'm shocked that a lot of folks don't understand that. And I think your book is like helping to shine the light and kind of create that bridge. I'm curious so with your father passing in 2011, your other family members, how have they received the book? Like kind of how has that been for you? Do you feel like there's kind of a piece that you all find together, or do you still have to like kind of work that out a bit?
And maybe if I can add to that, just the whole process of like, say, your mom with you doing TikToks and all of those things, how has the whole family process been around that up to and including the book?
Yeah. So my immediate family, for the most part, like my two brothers and my mom, have been relatively supportive the whole time. I've had some hard conversations with my mom over the last several years, where she was just concerned about certain things. But every single time, my mom has such a good heart. Every single time we had a conversation, she understood, and I understood where she was coming from, and we were fine. Um, she's gone a lot on this journey with me. She's fully like LGBTQ affirming now, and I mean, pretty much for the most
That's a really
part, we
big deal.
agree. Yeah,
Like that's a huge like leap from. I mean, that's not something to just walk past. Good for
yeah.
her.
Well,
When my brother came out to
your
her,
brother came out. Yeah,
and yeah, so he came out to me in 2015, and then he went back home to Texas, and I was on the speakerphone when he came out to my mom because he just wanted me there. And I remember like I opened us up in prayer because I didn't know how she would respond.
Yeah.
I was like, God, please just soften hearts. Like let everyone be open.
Aw.
And I wasn't even affirming at that point yet, but I just knew like I love my brother, and I was willing to just like work on the theology later, but like right now, like I need to take care of my brother. Um, and my mom, she just cried with him and just said how much she loves him. And like I know she was concerned, and her theology didn't change immediately either. But in that moment, she chose my brother and was willing to learn new things because she loved her son. Um, and that's really all you need. Like, as long as you just have the ability to say, okay, this belief I know is harming this person who I love, I'm willing to at least figure out if there's another way to believe about this. And she did that. And so I let her read the book before it published. She was like, besides Beecher, who saved me a couple times, and I was like freaking out. I was like, what do I do? And they came in and helped because they are also a writer. But I let her read it, and I know some of it was hard for her, especially some parts about my dad. But I had kind of warned her ahead of time. I'm like, these things are in here. These are the parts that make dad look the worst. But I feel like I tried to be as fair as possible and show that he was just a very, multifaceted person. And so she's like 99% just proud of me. But the only 1% where she struggles is, she just like comes over and she's like, I'm just really sorry that we put you through all of that. Like there were just some things that she didn't know from like my perspective. And, and she carries a lot of guilt. And, that was her livelihood. She was with my dad up until his last breath, and she would sing in all the churches too. She was a pastor's wife. And she believed it too, but she didn't see all the purity talks that I had to go to, and the kind of side lessons that we would get in kids church and youth group and all this stuff. And she just, I think she has some mom guilt. And I've told her, I was like, Mom, you did the best that you could with the information that you had. And I don't hold anything against her. But it's brought up some good conversation. So overall, she's very supportive. My one brother, Andrew, the one who came out, who's gay, he's been super supportive the whole time. And I let him read his chapter because I read a chapter of where I tell his story. I was like, is this okay? And he was like, so he approved it first before I told about him. And then my other brother is reading it. He's really busy, but I'm sure he'll be fine. Extended family is a different story. But yeah, overall, I'm very thankful. And then Beecher's family too. Beecher's dad read it and really liked it. And I mean that they were not always supportive, especially when I was taking my kids to Black Lives Matter protests back in 2020. That was really what sounded the alarms in both sides of the family. And they're like, what has happened to April? But they've come a long way. So I'm very thankful for that.
And your family is All Texan, mostly Texan?
My brothers still live in Texas. My mom moved to Lexington with us.
Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I before my dad passed away, I used to ask him, like, can you just recognize it was hard? And I would have given anything just for him to say he was sorry, a sincere sorry. So kudos to your mom for at least
Yeah, that's pretty special.
being
I
able
mean,
to say
I
she's
was
sorry.
thinking the same thing. Like
Yeah.
that, yeah, what a soft heart to be able to like hold the pain of I participated in something that had this harmful effect on my child. No parent wants to be confronted by that. So it just really says a lot about her. That's cool.
Yeah, no, she's been great. But I tell her, like, please don't feel guilty. Like, stop it.
Well, and some of all of this is that exclusivity, like, and again, I think you're very kind to your dad, and I haven't read every word of the book, but I've read a lot of it, and I think you're saying he wanted to get people to heaven, and he thought America was the way to get the world to heaven, as many of us were taught. There's this exclusivity of America is the best that you talk about in the book, and not only that, then sort of the exclusivity of Christian Catholics are Baptists are sort of Christian, maybe.
Yeah.
Catholics are not Christian, so talk about
Listen.
that, the exclusivity that we're taught about all of these things that plays into this Christian nationalism.
Yeah, so I think it's the funny thing to me is that if Christian nationalists ever come into power and turn America into the theocracy, that is the ultimate goal, especially if you look at Project 2025 and other things out there, which, knock on wood, never happens. I don't know who's going to take control. Like, it's definitely going to be Protestants, which is interesting that there's like Catholics coming along too, because I mean, when I grew up, we sincerely doubted whether Catholics were actually Christian.
Absolutely. I mean, we were like alleging demonic possession of, I mean, it was, we were not
prayed
friendly
to Mary, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
it.
We were taught they're praying to statues. Yeah. So this is a new thing.
Yeah. And I was definitely taught that the Pope was probably going to be the Antichrist, if not,
I heard that. Yeah.
Democrat
Absolutely.
president. Yeah. It's like a city on a hill, supposedly where it comes from. They're like, Rome, the Vatican's on a hill. It's the Pope. Like, we were not friendly to Catholics. So I almost feel like, the Catholics versus Protestant things would become a thing again, which I don't think they've thought through. It's like they've kind of joined forces on these culture wars. But like at the end of the day, I mean, I remember too, like we questioned, I did not believe this, but I knew lots of people within my Pentecostal world that believed you could not be a real Christian unless you spoke in tongues. And then there are Baptists who believe you cannot be a Christian if you do speak in tongues.
If you do speak in tongues. I mean, this is Paul's and my story, is that like 99.9% of our Sundays growing up, even though we were in different churches, would have been exactly the same, except for, like somebody's hands were raised above shoulder, that, like, so Paul came from the more charismatic background, and somebody was gonna, speak in tongues, and we were like Baptists, and that was not allowed. But otherwise, like, that was another group I was taught to fear growing up, is that, they were runaway, emotional, and not grounded in the word, and blah, blah, blah. And we're the only ones. And like, I once famously told my dad that Jesus was a good Christian, but a very good Baptist. So there was like in my little grade school mind, there's like a pecking order of like, Jesus was the best Baptist.
Well, and you talk about supporting Mitt Romney. My parents would never in a million years have voted for a Mormon for president had he not been running against and I'm using the air quotes if you're listening in audio, a Muslim black man for president. Then all of a sudden, Mitt Romney became a really good man. But otherwise, certainly we did not believe Mormons were Christians.
Oh, no. We were like, Mormons are in a cult. That's like a crazy cult over there. Like, we did not like Mormons or Jehovah's Witness or like Seventh-day Adventists, Church of Christ, because they didn't believe in music. Like, it's like the amount of infighting just among Christianity, if you're not in it, like, and it's like easy to just lump everybody together. But like, there's literally people like Stephen Wolfe, who wrote the book, The Case for Christian Nationalism, in it, he calls for capital punishment of heretics, which is just like like Christians who go against whatever they believe is true, ideology. I'm like, how are you going to, if they actually get to that, who's right? Because everybody has different beliefs in some way. And like currently there's over 45,000 Christian denominations globally, like different ones. And they all believe that they're the right ones. So it's funny to me too when people are like, the Bible is clear. I'm like, it's clearly not, actually.
Yeah, the IFB guys think if you read the NIV, you're going to hell.
Yeah. Right. And King James was gay. That's my favorite little
If the Christians take over, which ones are going to be in charge? That's going to be
I know.
Interesting.
Well, yeah.
But
go
ahead.
I was going to say, we would not be considered Christians. Like progressive Christians, they would rather us just be atheists. So
yeah, that's it.
They think we are actually. We want to sin, right? How did Christian American exceptionalism? And I loved how you wrote the history of America in your book. How did that play into your view of America and its Christianity and Christian nationalism?
Yeah. So we believed that America was founded as a Christian nation and that we were still a Christian nation, but barely, and that Democrats were trying to get us off the righteous path to no longer be a Christian nation. And so I believed and was taught that the reason why America was so successful and we're such a superpower and why we had won all of the wars we'd ever fought in was because God had supernaturally blessed our troops to win wars, and, even the history around the genocide with indigenous people, what we did, that was just like, no, we all came together and look, we saved a lot of them. We saved their souls. And so when you hold that belief and that God, and you believe God is good, if you believe that you serve a good God and that God kind of specially chose America as a Christian nation, like we were the only Christian nation in the world, really, then you can't not believe in American exceptionalism. Because if at any point you admit that America did anything untoward, like whether, like if we committed war crimes or we actually committed a genocide against an entire people group when we colonized the States, or the fact that there were Christians on the British side in the American Revolutionary War, and we're like, oh, we just killed Christians, then suddenly if you question if America is good, then you have to question whether God is good, and then it just. Like that's the thing about Christian nationalism in America is that your belief in America being good is so tied up in your belief in God that it can be, and it's rooted in American evangelicalism. And I don't think most people realize how much of nationalism has seeped into just Christianity in America in general, because it's from the like inception of the country too. Like you see it on and off throughout all of history. And like even in the 1950s in the Cold War, Billy Graham joined up with Dwight Eisenhower, and that was when they added "under God" to the Pledge of Allegiance, because that was their way to fight off, quote unquote, godless communists, was to say like, no, we're a Christian nation. We're establishing ourselves as this, and then God's going to bless us in these wars. Like it's always been there. But if you don't take a step out and actually wrestle with the truth and the facts and like actual history, not the whitewashed one, then you could get stuck in it forever, and not, it's easy to miss, and you have every reason, like you don't want to see it. You would rather turn a blind eye, because it's way harder to admit like, oh shoot, we were the bad guy. No, I can't be the bad guy.
As I kind of have been a step back from like the work that you've done, April, Paul, like, I was kind of flash back to being in the kitchen making macaroni and cheese and overhearing your podcast every week, and but not being directly, on the line of fire, calling this stuff out, taking the hits that you have. And
by the way, let me jump in and say that macaroni and cheese was for me, not for the kids, but I love some macaroni and cheese.
That's true. Yes, we are compatible in many ways, and that is in part because Paul's culinary expectations are like Kraft mac and cheese. I'm like, I got you. I'm on
Love
it.
that.
Yeah.
But I obviously have observed what kind of the feedback that Paul has gotten. April, I imagine it's only 10 times worse as, your audience is really large as a female. I think people, have a reaction to that too. Like, all this to say, you all and many others have been like turning the lights on and saying like, whoa, this is real. This stuff is happening in our church. It's something we've been impacted by, etc. You've dealt with all of that. You fought through it, all of that. And now in your book, and like what I heard you say a few minutes ago, it's like, you're like, and let's create this bridge. Let's help people that aren't from this world understand that there are some people who are like trying to live out their faith, and and also Democrats aren't demons. How do we bridge? So I'm just like, as you wrote this book and you kind of put that together with that in mind, like, what kind of reaction have you gotten? Do you see any evidence that in fact there is like open-mindedness happening? Are we still just like, do you feel like you're just kind of sort of in some ways preaching to the choir and like getting a bigger audience of folks who believe the same way, or do you see that bridge forming? And that's a long way of saying, like, is there any hope, I guess?
Yeah. So the book's only been out a little over a week, so I'm hoping I'll get more feedback. But I saw a comment from a woman a couple days ago who said that her and her parents, who are conservative, listened to my audiobook in the car while they were on a road trip. So it was her and her two parents. And she said that they stopped a lot through listening and actually had conversations of like, hey, is this happening in our church? And I think she said her parents were they are teachers at a conservative Christian school. And she said it brought up really good conversations, and that at the end of it, when they finished, that but like basically her mom just said like, wow, that was a really impactful book, and that her dad wanted to go out and buy it so that he could reread some things. And she just said they had really great conversations because of it. So I found that really encouraging, that because I didn't want to, I can come out swinging on some of my TikTok videos, and I wanted to be truthful without like beating it onto someone, because I was hoping that someone, if a conservative read it, that they could get through it and not feel attacked. So that was encouraging. And then on the other side, I got one of the reviews I saw said that it was someone who was not raised religious at all, who's never been a Christian, but said that it felt like it gave them an understanding of a movement that they didn't understand, and that they had vilified because they didn't understand. And now they feel like they have talking points and ways to actually communicate with those types of people that they couldn't before. And I heard similar things from other people who have family members who are very Christian nationalist. And they said, I feel like I have new tools now and ways to communicate that I didn't. So who knows if at Thanksgiving it helps or not. But so far the feedback's been really good. I had like a couple comments of people saying that they were going to burn my book and stuff like that. But that's nothing new.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I liked the video on that. Like, oh, please don't buy my book and burn it, and don't have all your friends buy it and burn it.
I know. Oh no. Anything but that.
And don't make videos of burning it, because that would be terrible. And you finish the book by saying, when you lose hope, you remember that you've changed, and so others can. And I guess so. I wonder at times if that's true. I'm always trying to figure out, why did I change? So what was it in you that brought that ability to change? And do you think kind of everybody has that mechanism inside? I've been trying. I would love to see some data on deconstructing people, and what is the common denominator in us that allowed us to step out of that echo chamber.
Yeah. So every really impactful moment that I had that made me go, huh, was an interaction human to human with someone or something that went against my ideology in some way. And, it took a while to change. Like for instance, I tell the story in my book, but when I was an intern in grad school for NBC in Dallas, my very first interview that I had was with a gay couple. It was a gay couple who was under scrutiny for being featured in like JCPenney's catalog, and people were trying to boycott JCPenney because they featured two gay dads for, I think it was a Father's Day issue. And so I had to go interview them as an intern. And in my head, I'm totally against homosexuality and gay marriage at this point. This was in like 2012. And so I'm like thinking, this is my moment. I've got to stand up for truth. I've got to stand up for God. Like I could witness to them, but I need to just like ask the right questions so that people can see that this is demonic. Like all this stuff's going in my head because we're taught that like anyone you interact with, like if you don't tell them about Jesus and then they never get saved, then their blood's on your hands. It's real fun mindset.
Ashamed of Jesus, he'll be ashamed of you.
Right, exactly. So I'm like, oh, I'm going into the lion's den, but I'm also trying to be professional. And I'm like, nobody knows like the internal struggle that I'm going through. And so I get there and the two men, they come and they greet me. They know I'm just an intern and they were so kind. Like surprisingly so kind to me. And, there were pictures on the wall of they had adopted, I think, 2 kids, if I'm remembering correctly. And like the pictures of their family were just beautiful. Like the kids looked happy. And, they were asking me about my life as the cameraman was setting up. And they were like, what do you do? Like, what are you wanting to do? And, I told them, and I mentioned like church and God at a couple points just to like test them.
And taking it in.
Yeah. Right. And one of them was
throw
like,
out the line and see.
Yeah. If you can. I think one of them told me that they had gone to SMU, which is, Methodist University, and mentioned some church. And it just like shocked, like stopped me in my tracks. I was like, you know about God? And then at the end, they were just so kind again. They were like, you did such a great job. Like, best of luck on your career. And like, I didn't ask any of my gotcha questions that I had like planned in my head. I just kind of said, God bless you. And I felt guilty about it as I walked away, because I felt like, oh, did I let God down? But then I also didn't feel guilty about it because like their kindness disarmed me. And I didn't like, I just felt like I didn't have weapons anymore because these seemed like just 2 genuinely good human beings. And, my brain, I knew how to tuck things aside because I'd been trained all my life. Like, don't dwell on doubts. Don't dwell on doubts. So my brain was just like, well, Satan can appear as an angel of light. And I bet that's what that was. But like it stuck in the back of my head for a long time that, okay, they're definitely, I didn't notice any demons. There was no foaming at the mouth. Their eyes didn't turn black when I said Jesus. So, something just didn't add up with my dogma. And so there were little things along the way that stuck with me, even though I didn't change right away. And then when it became my brother, and Beecher, my spouse, who's non-binary, there was suddenly I had reason to change, and as messed up as it is that it takes someone personal, like someone that you love, for you to have empathy for a situation, that was very much how it happened for me.
Yeah.
So I do think that people can change. Like I have so much respect too for people that for Christians that have become queer affirming when they didn't have like a personal reason to, like they didn't have like a family member or anything. They just chose to because they just saw the divine in queer people already. So that was not my story, but I do think that little by little people can change. Like and especially if people have good hearts, and like I really wanted to be good. And when I realized I was not on the side of good anymore, I had motivation to change because I just genuinely wanted, like I always wanted to be good. I was always a people pleaser. Like I didn't want to sin. I wanted God to be proud of me. I wanted my dad to be proud of me. And so like I've always had that, like I want to be a good person. And and maybe I'm sure there's people out there that don't care about being a good person, but I think most people want to be a good person at the end of the day. And so as long as you can channel that with someone, then I do think there's a willingness to change if they can have that realization of, oh, I am harming people.
Yeah. And there were always those moments for me where, like, just like that, your moment, well, they seem really nice and we don't seem so nice,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and to what Ashley was talking about me, I always loved history. I loved American history. I believed in American exceptionalism. And I had really good history teachers along the way that would say things that didn't add up to American exceptionalism, that they would teach America wasn't so great at this moment. And I would get kind of mad about that. And so I would dig into it and I'd go, oh, wait, we shouldn't have dropped that second bomb on Japan. We probably shouldn't have dropped the first one, but we could argue about it. But that second one was really not good, you know, and we've done a lot of, and so all of those things made me start to say, oh, maybe everything we've done hasn't been godly in all of our history, and made me rethink a lot of those things. So yeah, that was kind of my change too.
And I'm reading Dennis's comment in the chat about like a sincere studying of the Bible. I mean, like I can look back through my whole life and honestly say that exposure to the concept of a perfect divine love, that the person of Jesus, the expression of that sacrificial love, like I know for certain those are the seeds that went down deep for me that at some point allowed me to be like, maybe the traditions, the practice, the sort of cultural aspects of this, that doesn't seem to be in alignment with what, you know, like what I just kind of thought Jesus was, based on this belief that there is such a thing as the perfect divine love, you know? And so I actually think those seeds being in folks' hearts, even if their practice ends up being super weird and political and blah blah blah, like I do think there is that earnestness to be open to just like revelation, relationship, whatever. And I know, like, Paul, you would like preach this all the time when you were in a pulpit on Sunday, just kind of like, the God of the Bible doesn't look like this over here. And I do think that is reason to be hopeful, because I think those seeds are there for a lot of folks. And it's also the case that, like, I mean, now, like, neuroscience and all these fancy people that can study, like, social science and the changing of hearts, minds, habits, whatever, it always comes back to that personal connection. That is, like, it's sort of like the results are in, the research is conclusive. This is the way people change their mind on any topic. For sure, something is closely held as a religious or cultural or political view. It's the only path is like one-on-one connection.
Yeah. Yeah. There has to be a willingness from both sides too, to see the humanity in each other.
Yeah.
Just let me warn everybody, don't expect to have a long career in evangelical pastoring if you actually teach the Jesus in the Bible.
Yes. He's like woke now or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and April, in your book, you talked about how John 3:16 says, you know, God loves the whole world. And yet, even as you guys were traveling the world, you still sort of felt like, but America's his favorite.
Yeah, totally. Like America was the beacon that God was using to save the world.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
I'll never forget, quick little memories coming to mind here. I'll never forget the time when my dad came into my bedroom almost close to tears, saying that we had got to stay up all night praying for Ollie North, because he was going to be in a congressional hearing the next day. And if Ollie North goes down, then, like, America's on the line. And it was the whole crazy Dems going after Jesus in the form of Ollie North. Yeah, I remember that.
My dad was a big fan of Oliver North too.
I mean, see, that's where I start to get like, can people be saved when, as you were talking about in the book, April, you know, Barack Obama is going to make us a socialist country, and it didn't happen. Like, and now Kamala Harris is going to make us a socialist country. Like, how many times do you get to cry wolf on this thing before people start to say, I've heard this before?
Well, it doesn't stop them from believing that the rapture is going to happen, despite every single rapture prediction not happening. They just keep moving the goalposts. I think moving the goalposts is like an unofficial slogan of American evangelicalism.
So how does it feel? You have, and this is the hardback, and it exists, and it's real, and I'm holding Star Spangled Jesus in my hand. How does it feel to be an author and have a book? And what do you want to see happen with all of this?
Well, it feels really cool and surreal. And like leading up to the release, I had so much anxiety. I started having nightmares that like people from my old church and like family members that were close to my dad were making videos calling me out and being like, "Yeah, I'm so disappointed in you, April." Even Beth Moore showed up in my dream, saying she was disappointed in me. Like, that is a nightmare. If Beth Moore ever said she was disappointed in me, I think I would just quit life. I'm like, no. But yeah, no, it feels really cool. Like we went to a few different bookstores that happened to have a few copies, and I signed them, and just seeing it out in the world. We did a release week giveaway. My publisher did, and so 10 people won a signed copy, and each person was from a different state. And I was like, oh my God, like from the West Coast to the East Coast. And I just thought, I don't know, it's just a real humbling moment of like, this is all over. This is in the country. So honestly, it still feels kind of not real at the same time, because I don't know, it's just such a I don't even know what the right words to say, but it's a really cool feeling, and I'm so glad to be done. It was like 2 years in the making. So it's nice to see that my work is actually like come to fruition, and it wasn't for nothing. Because I took a break from evangelicalists to write that book. I was like, I have to focus. So yeah, it's been a really cool experience. And what I want to see happen from it, I mean, I really hope, like, if just one person can leave the nationalism behind out of their faith, like, it will have been worth it. Like, if I could just change one mind, um, or give someone the tools to help change someone else, like, and not in a gotcha way, but just in a way of like, let's just come together and not be so hateful and not demonize people just because they vote for a Democrat, and like, I would just love to move past the whole only true Christians vote Republican, because that's just not true.
Would you like to see like Megyn Kelly calling you the root of all evil, or Jesse Waters? Or
oh my gosh. I mean, hey, if that happens, it'd be great content.
I think it's time to start like planning the movie and figure out who's going to play you.
Oh my gosh.
I love your message, because it's like, hey, super cool, be Christian. Just drop the nationalism part. You're not you're not asking people to walk away from their closely held connection to God and to Jesus. You're just saying, see that is not the same thing as thinking, certain ideology needs to run the country. And there's a reason why our founders were actually agnostic and saying like, oh, keep the religion out of this. Whoa. Right? I mean, that seems pretty profound to me. Even if they were personally people of faith, they were like, that's not what our democracy is about.
Right. Or even, honestly, I would love for people to take the nationalism out of their Christianity, but I would also be fine if they take the Christian out of their nationalism and stop trying to blame Jesus for kicking immigrants out of our country.
Wow.
Like, be one or the other, but combining the two, just it doesn't work if you actually read the teachings of Jesus.
Yeah, stop co-opting our religion.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's good. By the way, my recurring nightmare is like all our old friends are inviting me to speak at their churches, and I'm like backstage going, do they know I don't believe this stuff anymore?
My gosh.
And I'm like terrified. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, dreams are so weird.
Isn't it weird? All right, tell everybody where to get the book.
Yeah, so you can buy it anywhere books are sold, really. Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble. There's local bookstores. Some of them are carrying it. Really, really anywhere. And then if you want to go the extra mile and support me even more, could leave a review on Amazon, Goodreads, or Audible. And that just helps, tell other people, hey, it's good.
Nice. Star Spangled Jesus by April Ajoy. Yeah.
And we're seeing in the chat, the Audible version is really fun to hear your voice reading it, and great testimonial from the person who listened to it in the car with their parents. So that's a fun way to experience
it. And you give the inflections at just the right moments, they say.
Well, that's good. I mean, I read it as I wrote it in my head. So
yeah.
Very good. Fun. All right, we finish up with what's on my mind. Ashley, do you want to start us off with what's on your mind tonight?
So I'm at this conference, and this conference is about, 750 people. So it's not like a ginormous thing, but it's a big group of people. And it's all these people who are in their own communities, kind of assigning themselves a role of like trying to bring a bunch of people together around complex problems and like figuring out like how do we actually solve some really big problems. So I've been in like Nerdville, like I've been in a conference where someone says like transportation or infrastructure and people applaud. Like I'm kind of in my realm, I think. And I think like I'm actually feeling really inspired and just, I don't know, feeling like it matters when people come together and decide they want things to be better and different in the future. Like that very act of just showing up and aligning yourself to that thought or that view, and then doing whatever you can to help bring that about, no matter what the role is or the task. Like I think there's like a spiritual energy and momentum that comes from people just being in agreement. So I'm experiencing that at this conference, and it's been actually really fun. And like, if you were to read the topics, it would be like wastewater, fire management, like boring things, but it's not been boring. So I'm feeling a spiritual connection from it all. So that's on my mind.
Yeah. And you sent me a picture of Dee Dee Myers.
Yes, and Gavin Newsom.
Who you have well, you have a bro crush on Dee Dee Myers, though.
I think Dee Dee, well, because of Hello, Dee Dee Myers is incredible, and also West Wing is like fiction is better than reality.
April,
like,
do you know who Dee Dee Myers is?
No.
I mean, you're younger than us. She was.
So,
go ahead, Dash.
The famous moment when you'll know how to finish the sentence. I did not have sex with that woman, right? Like that moment. Okay, so the person who said that, his press secretary, the first female press secretary in the U.S. and the youngest. I mean, she was like, I want to say in her late 20s. When she was representing Bill Clinton in the press room every day, just like everything firing at her, and so she was press secretary of Bill Clinton, and then she was CJ in inspired the character CJ in West Wing.
She was the basis for the show West Wing.
Yes. And she's super cool to work with. So she works in state government now in California. So I was sending Paul a picture of the governor who's on the stage, but he, of course, it's like, oh, you saw Dee Dee Myers today, because I do love her and appreciate her. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So what's on your mind, Paul?
I'll go next, and I'll let April be the finale. These true crime shows, but particularly like I started watching Monsters, which is about the Menendez brothers, and I keep hearing about it, people talking about it, and it's kind of gross. I'm not sure I'm going to keep watching it, but there's kind of this movement of like people want the Menendez brothers to be set free. I don't know if you remember these two brothers that killed their parents in California. It's something about California kids killing their parents, and or Scott Peterson. People want Scott Peterson to be set free, who killed his pregnant wife Lacey, and I watched a little bit of his too, and so I'm just a little bit disturbed that true crime now is like focusing on getting these people who have been convicted of these grotesque murders to go free. And I guess if they're innocent, I guess they should go free, but it just, I don't know. I was watching a little bit of this Monsters one with the Menendez brothers, and I just like felt slimed by it all. So our true crime fetish in America, I think, may be going a little bit too far.
Yeah, because I feel like at a certain point, like you kind of forget the victims in it all, and it becomes about the killers.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Dexter, having been so famous and all of that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I got to admit, like, what was the show about the guy making meth?
Breaking Bad.
Oh,
Breaking Bad,
yeah.
or Sopranos. You do start rooting for the criminal, and you kind of can't help it because it just is that way. But when it's like real people who have been put in prison for real crimes, you got to be careful about rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah. My turn.
Yeah, go for
Your
it.
turn.
I've been really hung up on all these hurricane conspiracy theories that have been happening. And I saw this one. This isn't really a conspiracy. This is just, I don't know if you could see it on the screen. I'll show you, but it's from a rapture warning group, like a Facebook group that's dedicated to just predicting the rapture. And I'll show you the picture. But the text says, look at this storm. So this is about Milton. Look at this storm. There is a blatant face as a demon. There's no denying it. That's crazy. Then she says, pray for those in God's hand. But look at this picture. She says there's a face there.
Clearly.
I have tried so hard to try to find the face. Here's the whole thing. Like, I think it's not the screen. There's just really no face there.
I think it just looks like a nipple.
Yeah, or like a booty hole.
Or a booty hole.
I think I saw the Grinch that stole Christmas in there, maybe.
Yeah, I cannot find it. And that is what is on my mind. I've spent too long being like, where is this face?
It's like one of those pictures that you have to look at them and it starts to move 3D.
I know. And like she says it so confidently. It's a blatant face. There's no denying it. I'm like, I think you can though.
Well, it's another one of these things where like Joe Biden is completely insane and incompetent, and he can bring a hurricane that can wipe the eastern seaboard off the face of the earth.
Oh my gosh, I know. Republicans have spent years saying that climate change is a hoax, and that like there's no way that humans can impact the weather in that way and make it more extreme. And now they're like, Democrats are controlling the weather. Like, what? Pick a struggle. Like, how is that more believable than climate change?
Okay, because you said Joe Biden, if we have time for one more, what's on my mind? Dana Carvey coming back on Saturday Night Live as Joe Biden is literally making, like, I could die happy. This is the greatest thing since he was originally on the show. I love his caricature of Joe Biden.
He does great. I also think Jim Gaffigan as Tim Walz is really good too.
Oh, so good. So yeah, Saturday Night Live is having a moment right now.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
50 years, I guess, of a moment.
All right, April. It's late on the East Coast, as we always say.
I know. It's my bedtime.
Well, hey, it was fun to be back with you on Evangelicalish, and love the book. Love that you wrote it and got it out of from the inside into print. And yeah, just keep doing what you do, and we'll have you back again soon to hang out with us on Evangelicalish.
Yay, I'd love to.
Thank you for being with us. It was awesome.
And say hi to Beecher and the kids and tell them we love you all. So see you again soon. All right. Good night, everyone. We'll see you again next week as we counting down to election and chewing our nails and having scary, scary dreams as we get there. We'll see you all again soon.